All righty. Welcome. Who's here to see Sean McCullum? Good, because you'd be sadly disappointed Sean's not here. Sean is on a 50th birthday trip with his wife to DC, so good, nobody's going to be disappointed. Who's here to hear about the Hacker's Guide to Environmental Catastrophe? No, we're not going to do that either. And if you actually read the synopsis about what's supposed to be going on, this is supposed to be about defending the cloud. Who's here to defend the cloud? Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not a defense guy. That's not what I do.
You're going to teach us how to craft the cloud?
Yes, we are. Gonna record this. My name's Aaron Cure. I am a principal security consultant with Science First Data Defense and a principal instructor with SANS. I teach SANS Sec 588 and Sec 542. That's web pen testing and cloud pen testing. All I do is beat things up. I don't know how to fix it, and I don't care. It's not my job. All I do is get paid to come in, tell you your baby's ugly, and go home. It's fantastic. The guys on the blue team, the ones that are doing Sec 488, that kind of stuff, you have to say, oh, okay, well, here's the problem we found, and here's how you fix it. I was on that team for a whole long time, and what I figured out is I don't like it. I don't like it. So we're going to beat some stuff up today. I also did the HIPAA class and the Secure.net development. That was the same Sec 542, only from the developer side. So we taught the developers how to find all the bad code and fixed it. And what SANS kind of found out was that nobody cared. So they stopped doing those classes. So we don't teach developers anymore. We just teach people how to beat stuff up. We call it good. The obligatory certs, some contact information. I have cards if anybody wants them. It's got that stuff on it. There we go. I would like to introduce you to my nemesis. Anybody have a nemesis? Come on, it's okay to admit it. You don't have to say who it is. I'm being recorded. Nobody else is. Right? Well, I have a nemesis, and his name is Chris Green. Now, Chris decided, hey, it's election season. I'm going to go run. Chris and I do not agree philosophically. Our ideals do not align. And I got to do something to get him out of this race. I'm just saying. So I went to his LinkedIn page, right? Because everybody's got a LinkedIn page. LinkedIn is great for hackers, by the way. Anytime anybody sends you a connection request, say yes. Because most of the tools that we use will let you go through all the people that you know on LinkedIn and everybody that they know and everybody that they know. It's fantastic. I'm a big fan. So if you didn't know that, little pro tip, everybody's your friend. So Chris is the chief cook and bottle washer at Snow Cones. Yeah. Okay, I don't know what that is, and really I don't care. As long as I can get Chris out of this. He's got to go. Anybody former military, current military? Yeah, I remember they always told you, don't walk in front of the projector, they slap you. Yeah, you know what? I'm not in the Army anymore, you can't tell me what to do. Just saying. All right, so Chris works at Snow Cones. Well, the first thing we need to do, we need to figure out where Chris lives in the cloud. What do we mean when we talk about the cloud? What's that?
The internet.
The internet, where? So when we talk about the cloud, we're usually talking about AWS, Azure, and Google, right? Or GovCloud. What's GovCloud? AWS, Azure, and Google in the cloud, right? Nothing crazy. And Oracle now. I don't pen test Oracle. I don't have enough insurance. If you read Oracle's terms of service for pen testing, and they're like, if anything ever goes down, you're responsible for it. Anything that anybody else goes down, you're responsible for that. And all the uptime and all the upkeep, pass.
Okay, they got some vulnerabilities you need to
They are chock full of fun. Absolutely. So, AWS and Azure is really where everybody's at. That's where the world lives. A lot of proof of concept goes on in Google because it's cheap. But AWS and Azure, that's where businesses live, and that's where we're going to live. So the first thing we need to do is find out what part of the cloud cloud, they live in. So we need to do some username enumeration. And what we're doing is identifying what accounts live where and what accounts are valid. Now, in traditional web apps, we talk about things like your password is incorrect. Anybody ever seen that on a web page, right? What does that mean? If you put in your username and password and it says your password is incorrect, your username is correct. I had a customer came to me, and this was their first real development project. And they said, we've got a bunch of customers that forget which email address they put into the system that uses their username. So what we want to do is we want to change the login page, and if it's the wrong username, we want to put invalid username. And if it's the wrong password, we want to put invalid password. And guess what I said?
Bad idea.
Yeah, that's terrible. That's textbook username enumeration. We're telling you who lives in that system. I said, you've got to do it. If they can't handle that, then maybe you need to find smarter customers. No, I didn't say that because it was rude, but I thought it for sure. So, also things like this account already exists, user not found, and just general differences in responses. The way we find things in those login forms. We watch as it comes back, and a lot of times in older apps, the developers would take the invalid username and invalid password and copy and paste the invalid username or password response into both of those places. Instead of using the same string, they would copy and paste, and sometimes they would leave an extra space and things like that. So it was still a different response. So we can find things like that. So that's classic. And yeah, my favorite little Office reference there. If you can't read it, it says, yeah, if you could tell me whether it's my username or password that's incorrect, that'd be great. That'd be great, all right? So, in the cloud, 20 years ago, we eliminated username enumeration. We said, don't do it. Just say invalid username or password. And then the cloud came around. Anybody ever logged into the Azure portal? What do you put in? Your email, and then you hit go. And then you put in your password, and then you hit go. Well, every single cloud environment right now is vulnerable to username enumeration. I see that look of disbelief on your face. I'll prove it, just wait. I'll prove it. So, if you have a valid tenant, a tenant is a domain name in Azure, right? It's called an organization in AWS. And if you have a correct one, then it'll say, can't find an account with that username or can't find a user with that name. It will tell you whether or not it's a valid user. So we can figure out whether it's a correct user or whether it's a wrong tenant or all those kinds of things. In this case, we have the wrong user, but a tenant that actually exists says the username may be incorrect. Okay, so now I know snowcones.com is a thing. That's how we figure out what they are. And then the users, if it's a correct user and a valid tenant, it comes up with a password page. Aha, thank you, Microsoft. Cool, cool, cool. We can also do Azure AD, what do they call it now? Entra ID, right? Because everybody know what Entra ID is. That's Microsoft's old face recognition technology. So now everything is face recognition in the cloud. They confuse me sometimes. So you can also tell, hey, this setting says, let me get into the directory and find things. So if that is set, we can actually use the Azure command line or the Azure application API and do the get Azure AD user -all. We may not have rights, but we can do it one at a time for name at domain, and it'll tell us whether it exists or doesn't. So we can do it programmatically. Yes?
Just for the administrator, or are you allowing all users?
Just for the administrator, or are you allowing all users to do that? Guess what the default is? No, that would be better. Even unauthenticated users. Anybody want to cry yet? Wait, we're not there. So go turn that setting off and then that won't happen. See, I told you I'd give you a little defense. All right. Not much, but a little. So let's go do just that. Because I saw a whole lot of disbelief on your faces. You can't do that. That's not possible. Microsoft wouldn't allow user enumeration.
Microsoft is the most hacked system in the world that allows lateral movement to get to everything. Yes, they allow it. They don't even require MFA for their admins yet.
That's right. Microsoft does not require MFA for their admins or all users or any of that stuff. And it's great for lateral movement. What are you talking about? You make it sound like this is a bad thing. This is fantastic from the red team side.
When you're identity and credential access management, yes, this is horrible.
Yes, if you're on the blue team, switch teams. Life is so much more fun on the attack team, I'm telling you. So let's go to portal.azure.com. Here is the Azure portal, nothing up my sleeves, right? Oh, how rude. I do that all the time. Don't feel bad. It's not just you. I do this every time when I'm teaching classes, and I've been teaching for SANS for about 15 years now. So one of these days I'll figure it out. Look at that. Now you can see it. So we're going to go look for, let's try sea green at, we know it's snow cones. Let's try snowcones.net. Couldn't find an account with that username. What's account mean?
Tenant exists.
Tenant doesn't exist. The account is the tenant, meaning that domain doesn't exist on Microsoft. How about snowcones.com? That username may be incorrect. That means the snowcones.com tenant exists. All right, well, if it's not C green, how about C dot green? No, how about Chris dot green? Because those are the first three most common corporate structures. Well, we know they live in Azure. They may live elsewhere, but they definitely live in Azure. I told you this job isn't hard. It's so much better to live on the red team. Now, are there controls in place to stop this? Yes.
Are they implemented and implemented correctly?
Are they implemented and implemented correctly? Actually, yes. Microsoft controls them. They are, I will not badmouth vendors today. I will not badmouth vendors today. If you make 10 incorrect guesses within a 1-minute period, it will shun you for 60 seconds, I think. If the next request, and it has to come from the same IP, if the next request is not a valid request, it will shun you again, this time for a little bit longer. Did you hear the key there? From the same IP. Anybody got a proxy hopper? I do. It's called AWS. Or Azure, right? Go over to Azure, set up an internet gateway. Every request comes from a different IP automatically. Good to know. Yeah, cool. All right, so we have a username that's valid for Chris.Green at snowcones. Let's figure out how we get his password. So, fact. We're just going to talk about facts and passwords. Nobody ever uses the same password on multiple websites, right? Anybody here? I'm not asking about you. I know you don't. You're professionals. But do you know of anyone that, I mean, nobody you'd go drinking with, but do you know of anyone that uses the same password on the same website, a different website? Yeah. Yeah. Those people. So, nobody reuses passwords, that's a cold hard fact. Everybody immediately changes their password when they're in a breach and constantly monitors for breaches. Yeah, nobody does that. I found out that I was in a breach one time because I got a notification from OpenTable that I had reserved a table in Australia. I've been on every continent in this world except for one. Guess which one it is? Australia. Yes, Antarctica, been there. Australia, no. So I'm pretty sure it wasn't me.
You're gonna miss your reservation.
I missed my reservation, as a matter of fact. One of my breached passwords, my favorite password, Tigger99, was breached. So how do we find these kinds of things? Well, we use stuff like password spraying and credential stuffing. What's password spraying? We take the 5 worst passwords we can find off of breach lists, like the RockU list, right? And we push that with every username we found in our username enumeration to see if we can find a bad password. Or we use credential stuffing. Credential stuffing means we take credentials from breach lists that have been attributed to the users that we find, and we stuff them in as username password pairs. What do you think our password spraying chances are of finding a user? Pretty low. Password spraying, the 5 worst passwords. What are the odds that I used a password that was breached? Well, maybe. But if I use a password that you've used in the past, now what do you think my odds are? Real good, right? Yeah. So we're going to take a list of passwords, a list of usernames, push them together, and go. So how do we find these compromised passwords? Well, anybody heard of Troy Hunt? Yeah. If you don't follow Troy Hunt on X, formerly known as Twitter, that is the official name, right? Has anybody ever seen it written any other way? As he said on X, formerly known as Twitter, Troy Hunt has a bunch of stuff. He's a great security researcher out of Australia, the one continent I haven't been to, and he runs a tool called Have I Been Pwned? Troy is a great guy to follow on X, formerly known as Twitter. My favorite Troy Hunt post was he went down to a sandwich shop to get a salad sandwich. And as he was walking in, there was a guy standing on the sidewalk, and he said, hey, I'm asking people who drive nice cars like yours, Troy was driving his McLaren, what you do for a living so that I can kind of figure out how I want to change my life, because I'm obviously living my life wrong. They had a great talk, and he summarized the talk. It went on for pages. And the first comment came from an American. Anybody know what it was? I am quoting here, what the fuck is a salad sandwich? Fact, quote, go look it up. Don't care about the rest of the thing. Apparently it's 2 pieces of bread with a salad in the middle, as you would expect. The salad dressing becomes a salad dressing. That's a thing. Fact, actual quote. So, we're going to go out and find, there's over 8 million passwords, 8 billion passwords, I don't know, there's a ton of passwords out on Troy's site. Dark breaches, the dark web, data breaches, all of these things get published. They all get dehashed. If you go to dehash.org, you can download a bunch of password lists. All these things are going to be there. You can go find all of these things. They're publicly available. And then, let's go try to find one. I mean, RockU, everybody know about the RockU list when Sony got breached because of RockU, the game company, their whole network got breached and Sony lost all those users. That's where the RockU list came from. And there were 8.4 billion entries in it alone. So there's a lot of passwords out there. But it's nice when they're attributed to someone, where we can actually use them. So we're going to pop back over here. We'll see if I actually remember this time to show you what I'm doing, because it's not nearly as fun when I just talk about it. So we're going to come into here, and I'm going to go into my password list, and I'm going to grep for sea green. And then I'm going to tell it what to look at. Okay, there's a password. I'm going to grep for Chris Green. I'm going to grep for C. Dot Green. I'm going to grep for Chris. Dot Green. Okay, so there's a couple of passwords to try. I don't know about you, but I see that Chris has been nodding because he's using the same password on multiple sites. Oh no! As an attacker, that makes me really sad. Guess which one I'm going to try first. Copy that. Come back over here. I'm going to paste it right here. Oh, look at that. Do you want to stay signed in? Sure. Why not? Right? That's the easiest part of your day. Done. Now we're in the Azure portal. Now there's not a lot you can do in the Azure portal, right? Kind of like the AWS console, there's not a lot you can do in there. There's a lot you can do in there. Thank you. Everything. All the VMs, if you want to stand up a new Bitcoin miner, did you know that Microsoft has a machine that has, I think it's 3,200 processors, and I don't know, it's like 32 petabytes of RAM. I mean, it's huge. It's the one that they use to calculate all the data models for the AI models. You can rent it. I think it's $100,000 an hour. But if I'm not paying for it, what do I care? Stand it up, throw a Bitcoin miner on that sucker, and make yourself 50 cents. I know. It happens. So if we come in here, we can do all kinds of stuff. Like we can look at intra ID. We can look in here and say, oh, if I come into manage users, look how many users are in this domain. Apparently, snow cones is a pretty lucrative business. It has a lot of employees. Maybe that's all his customers. Some developers use Entra ID as their authentication. Either way, I don't care. I have access to them all. Guess where I'm going next? Right? Ransomware. I mean, no, that would be rude. I'm going to write it up in my report. Cool, 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 cool. So, now that we have things, we have an authentication, we can get into that account. We can get into the portal. We can see all of the EC2 instances. What's an EC2 instance? It's a virtual machine in AWS, right? What does Microsoft call a virtual machine? A virtual machine, because that's what it is. Come on. Does it have to have a really catchy name? Elastic Compute. Right? Everything is elastic. Have you known that? Yeah, when Azure got together, they wanted it to be able to you can grow and shrink. So it's elastic. Okay. Yeah. All right. So, insecure storage, we're going to go look for things. Now, MITRE calls this, in their CWEs, CWE 922 is insecure storage of sensitive information. If we were talking about on-prem, if we're talking about walking around the desks, what would this be? Shoulder surfing, crap laying on your desk, right? Rifling through your inbox, right? That's what we're doing. We're going to go through and we're going to find anywhere where these kinds of things show up. So it might be software that stores things improperly, like mobile applications are the best or the worst, depending, again, red team, blue team. On keeping information insecure. They store things in your file system that we can just rifle through as attackers. It's fun. I like it. I mean, don't be afraid to carry your cell phone around. Notice I don't have one on me. But all the time, we're going to see system passwords in code, right? We'll get into a system, we'll look at the source code, and go, there it is. We'll look at system passwords and configuration files in clear text. Keys in Docker containers, right? Docker containers are secure. Sorry, Docker containers are insecure. I forgot a word there. Yeah. Docker containers, what do they mostly run as? What user? Root. I am root. Can you get to the underlying operating system from a Docker container? You absolutely can. We do it all the time. It's fantastic. So if you're now keeping keys in there, when we talk about keys, we're talking about authentication material. Maybe AWS keys, so I can get in and go talk to the AWS system. Maybe Azure tokens. Azure uses JWT, a JSON Web Token, that you use to authenticate to everything. So you can go find all of those kinds of things. And then sometimes they're just stored on the file system in clear text. Kubernetes, right? Kubernetes stores all of its secrets and windows in plain text on the file system. Cool, cool, cool. So we're going to grab that information, everything that we got from using Access somehow, like our credential stuffing attack. We're going to go search OneDrive. We're going to go search their email. Maybe we'll find some keys lying around. Now, don't ever look on a developer's machine or an admin's machine, because they store everything perfectly every time. I appreciate the chuckle. Yeah. Developer boxes are fantastic because they have credentials to all the systems. The ones they don't have, you're going to find in an administrator. Now, they all keep them securely in a key vault. Why are you laughing? This is fact.
It was a comedy routine.
Yeah. They're all stored plain text. Anywhere they get them, doesn't matter, let me go. Now, devs always have the limited amount of access that they need to get their job done, right? And admins always log into another account to make any changes, because those are both best practices. Well, it's true that they're best practices. So, one of the ways we can get in and play around with this is Microsoft Graph. So the Microsoft Graph API, there used to be a ton of different SDKs, right? So software developer kits. And so if you wanted to talk to Outlook, you had to have the Outlook SDK. If you wanted to talk to Word, you had a Word SDK. If you wanted to talk to, well, when you put those into the same program, because you needed to pull something out of Outlook and put it into a Word doc or vice versa, there would be conflicting requirements, and it sucked. So, technical term. So Microsoft created this new thing called Graph that just makes it all under one umbrella. You can go query for emails or stuff stored in OneDrive or anything in the cloud, whether it's Office, O365, Portal, Azure, any of those things.
Red Team Paradise.
What's that?
Red Team Paradise.
Red Team Paradise. We love this. We are very happy about this. So, and there's SDKs for all kinds of languages for that, so you can actually just use any programming language you like and go jump into that stuff. So Postman, there's an API for it. You can actually just pull a Postman collection in, and you can go get credentials and run. You know, I wonder if we could get credentials for Chris. The only problem with this is that you actually have to have rights to Postman granted inside of Entra. So most accounts actually don't have that, which is sad. If only there was a way that we could get into Entra and allow Chris the rights to do that. Oh yeah, we're already there. So we'll talk about that in another talk. But let's go in and look at all the fun things. So I'm going to come in here. I'm going to go back to Thank you. One of us has to remember it. I have other things going on. I'm a very busy person. So we're going to come back into Azure, and we're going to go look at this desktop. Now, I don't know who this desktop belongs to. Maybe you can figure it out. We can look in here. It's not real big. Looks like what they're doing is having people take a machine and then RDP, right, remote desktop, into that machine and see what. Yeah, just let you go in and we'll host it. That way we can control all the secrets.
No hunting necessary.
Yeah, it's already here. You're just going to give it to me. So I'm going to go to connect, and then it's going to say, how do you want to connect? Do you want to download an RDP file? As a matter of fact, I do. Thank you so much. I'm going to open up that folder and double click. That's being so rude. We're going to copy the IP right here. Luckily, Microsoft is real friendly about that too. And our public IP address. Come into here. Say go there. And we need to authenticate. Only we had some authentication credentials. Oh yeah, we already have that because it uses Entra. Also, Chris.Green. And jump over here, grab his password again. Pass it in here. Go. Somebody was here before me. So look at that right there on the desktop. There's a cool little file. I'm going to go play with that. And this looks like a key to me. The fact that it says private key right in it, and it's an SSH private key, I don't know. I'm not a professional, but I did stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night. Right? So I'm just going to copy this key. I'm going to get rid of it. I'm going to come over here, go into my terminal. I'm going to key.text, paste that in there. If you don't use vi, you're wrong. This thing doesn't start working. I'm going to cry. Stop. Come on, where is the escape and why isn't it working? Escape.
Try now.
Stop it. Do not mock. Do not mock. So we can look around in here, see if there's anything else. Cool, 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 cool. Well, where else could we look? How many people maintain an Exchange server? How many people said, hey, that sucks, and went to the cloud? Where did they go to the cloud? Office 365 beyond Entra ID, right? Let's just go to office.com. No, that's an invasion of privacy. I can log on to his private desktop. I can steal all his passwords out of the cloud, but I'm not going to read his email. And because we're already logged into Portal, we're already logged into Office. And hey, what up? Oh, some Git stuff, GitHub stuff. That's fun. Hey, Chris, welcome to the team. I've attached your SSH private key to connect you to GitHub. There's the link. So we can pull and push the latest code. And in fact, here, I believe, is that same certificate that we already found. Look at that. Fancy. I like fancy. I like easy. So now we know that this is their GitHub. Let me copy that, and let's just go see if we can get there. No. Well, I bet we can go find it. Because we have credentials. So, we know that that is the setup. We know that is the URL. We have stolen things out of the emails. We have stolen things. There's other good stuff in here. I mean, if you want to go see that, oh, SSH keys were added, so you know which one you can find. All you have to do is just SHA-2 of that private key we found, and you'll see that it matches this one, which is really handy. All those kinds of things. So we've made some progress. It's been what, 30 minutes? Yeah. This job is easy, I'm telling you. Everybody needs to take 588, become cloud pen testers, get rich. Yeah. So let's talk about CICD, EIO. What's CICD? Continuous integration, continuous deployment, right? Where's the security? What does that mean? What does CICD mean? A developer checks in code and it gets built and pushed to the web. Where's the security part? We get a pen test once a year, we're good. How often do most organizations push code? Every 2 weeks, right? If they're on just a standard development cycle. There's a company in Phoenix that Danica Patrick drives for. I'm not going to name them. They push code 10,000 times a day. Sometimes on a slow day, it's only 1,000. They tweak their prices by a penny or two. They move things up and down and change colors to see if it'll change. How many times do you think that code gets scanned? How many times do you think people check out? Yes, it is a nice round number. You're absolutely correct. A nice round number. 0 is perfectly round. By the way, did you know that if you eat foods that are shaped like a 0, there's 0 calories? The calories fall directly out of the milk. Fact. It's how I maintain my amazing physique. So, we've got a key to GitHub. We can get in there and play around with Git, probably pull the code, change their CI/CD process. So what? What is in a continuous deployment process? If they deploy to GitHub, and then GitHub deploys to their production environment, say it's an AWS, what does GitHub have to have? Credentials. It's got to have some set of keys to be able to push that code over there. It's got to have username and password, something to get it over there. But that's okay because GitHub stores it encrypted. You know that? You can create secrets inside of GitHub and then use those secrets inside your code. So when you have a process where you pull things, it will decrypt it and give it to you. How does it give it to you? Environment variables. Are environment variables encrypted? No. What process on the system has access to environment variables? Every user and every process has access to environment variables. So, is there any sensitive data? We're going to find out. So, CI/CD, it's a collection of actions. That's all it is. As part of this build process, go do this, then go do this, then go do this. If you look, those are just Linux commands. So this thing's running on a Linux machine. It's things that it needs to build. The other things it needs are keys, secrets, source code, pulling all of those things in. So let's go steal some code. I mean, what the heck? Let's go steal a whole CI/CD process. And I know some of you are thinking this is a little far-fetched, but this is actually based off of an actual attack that we did against the customer. Yeah, this exact attack. In fact, we do it in 588 because it's a lot of fun. All right, so let's go into downloads. Every time, I told you. I'm nothing if I'm not consistent, which if I were a restaurant, that'd be fantastic, right? Do the same thing every time, you're good. So we have that ID, ED, so I'm just gonna copy ID to tildewack.ssh, and I'm gonna call it stolen. It's almost a tilde. It's tilde adjacent. Okay, what else do I need to do with SSH keys? Got to change your permissions, right? Do the 0600 to tildewack.ssh stolen. Get, and then the last thing I need to do is edit my SSH config file. I'm going to add a host for github.com, and I'm going to say don't. Identity file equals tilde whack.ssh stolen get. Stolen. Okay. Save that. And I'm going to make a directory code. I'm going to do a git clone, git at github.com. That tells us that it's SSH. And then I'm going to grab that URL that it gave us, so cure/snowcones. And I don't have the fingerprint, I'll accept it. github.com. SSH, stolen get, that is a get key, it should be happy, look at my config, you are correct, I have an extra space there. If that was it. This is how it normally goes. Just so you know. I know I did it. I copied the right key. What was that question, sorry?
I said he probably just changed his password.
Probably, yeah, because he knew he was being attacked. Yeah. 100%. He just changed his password. First try. First time, every time. Let's put something weird in there. All right, so I'm going to go into snow cones. I'm going to open up VS Code because it's my favorite text editor besides VI. And I'm going to look right here in their .github folder. There is, this is a pretty easy little process. So we're just going to break it because it's just what we do. So I'm going to start up a couple of processes. I'm going to clear this out, and I'm going to do a Python 3, use the module http.server on port 9999. That's just going to start up a web server in that folder. Then I'm going to get a new one. I'm going to do an ngrok, which if you haven't used ngrok, is a fantastic little tool. Basically, without having to expose ports out of your system, it just exposes something that lives in AWS that you can send things to, and it will send it to whatever port is running, whatever you tell it to do. So in this case, it takes whatever is on this URL and sends it to that little Python listener that I have. So if I came over here and I just dropped in that URL, it's showing me that directory, I can say question mark, hello, 123. Now if I come back to that Python, you can see that there was a request to hello, 123. So if I somehow get something to call that external URL, I can now send data back. This is where the magic happens. You ready? Here we go. We're going to come right in here, and we're going to do a new step. We're going to run curl against our URL, and we're going to pass in an environment variable, echo $key ID. I just happen to know that they are key and key ID in this system. Pipe that to base 64. Base 64 encoding so we can get all those special characters, if there are any. And we're going to do $key ID and $key. Send them to base 64, save those changes, and then I'm going to come in here, don't need you. I'm going to do a git status. It's going to say that there's one file, git commit, add a message, test. You don't have your git set up. That's okay, it tells me how to do it. Now we'll do a git commit, and it's committed, git push. Now, if everything worked, and everything is nice, it's going to go get committed. And then it's going to go and set up that GitHub action, and it's going to run it, and it's going to decrypt all those variables and throw them into environment variables. Then it's going to take that data and send it to us. And ta-da! We have the key ID and the key. Well, what are we going to do with it? Decrypt it. That's not encrypted. It's encoded. What's the difference between encoding and encrypting? Decryption, you need a key. This is just base 64 encoded. It just makes it pretty to send across the wire. So really, all we have to do here is grab this and do echo no new line. This. Pipe that to base 64 decode, because we base 64 encoded it, Oh, AKIA. Anybody know what an AKIA key is? Access key is always. It means it's a permanent access key. AFCEA or session keys, they die every 60 seconds to 10 hours kind of thing. AKIA lasts forever. They're fantastic. And then, of course, if we have a key, we need to get the echo line, pipe that to base 64 decode. Sweet. So now we have the access key and the access key. So I'm going to take those two values. Create a new file. To directory.aws. I'm going to buy the config file. I'm going to create a new profile called insert. Stolen. We're going to set the region equal to AWS West 2, and we're going to set the output equal to JSON, and then we're going to buy the credentials file, and we're going to say this is the stolen profile again, and AWS access key ID equals that. And the AWS secret access key is equal to that. And AWS S3LS, we're going to use the profile stolen. And poof, we have access to an S3 bucket. I like S3 buckets, especially when they're not public S3 buckets. It means there's something worth protecting. Oops. We dropped out of presentation mode. We're no longer flying at 30,000 feet. So, the next thing we do once we get into some places, we pivot, pivot, pivot. Okay? Pivot. We go find all the things. If it gets me AWS keys, where should I go? AWS. Let's go do things. Let's start up EC2 instances. Create some new Bitcoin miners, because that's all we ever do, right? We just go in and we create Bitcoin miners. So, we need to go look at the permissions of the user keys. What can they do? Can they clone instances? Can they mirror databases, relay traffic, any of that kind of stuff? Synchronize S3 buckets, create new users. Can I create myself a new admin and go with that? All depends on what rights that one has. So, now that we got here, I'm not going to not show it to you. We're going to do an AWS S3 sync. You want to watch it too?
Yes, please.
I mean, I guess you did watch all the others. You might as well watch the fun one. So we're going to do an AWS S3 sync from S3. And we're going to copy this. And we're going to copy it into a directory called that. And let's go see if we can actually do an S3 sync. Come on. Big money, big money, big money, big money. Oh yeah, we have to tell it which credentials to use, right? Profile stolen. Come on, you can do it. Oh, look at that. I like that a lot. Do you like that a lot? You're not quite sure yet. I get it. Let's find out. So there should be a snow cones. Chris got, no? Where did I put it? Oh, I put it in the AWS folder. Cool. Hold on. It ran pretty fast. We'll just do it again. So in our home directory, we now have Chris Green for City Council. The only thing better than photos is embarrassing politician photos. It's a banana. It's a banana. Come on, get it out of the gutter. I have important things to do. You pay me thousands of dollars to be here. I sliced no house. Come on, it's name relevant. Come on. It's thematic. Oh, and then the next step, of course, is profit. If you're a South Park fan, I'm from Colorado. How can I help you? Come on. Profit, underpants notes. Come on. Step 1, collect underpants. Step 2, Step 3, profit. So, what do? We identified that tenant in Azure. We discovered the users using username enumeration. We found the logins through a breach, did some credential stuffing, got logged in. We logged into that. We found a key. We cloned the repo. We made some changes. We changed our CI/CD process, which is CI/CD injection. We used that to find AWS keys, use those AWS keys to get into an S3 bucket, pulled off the incriminating file steal so that we could get him to pull out of the race.
This is a long way to go to teach people not to reuse passwords.
Yeah, well, password reuse is one of the problems. So, questions? That is everything that I have, but I do have a parting gift. If you want to do more cloud stuff, not just one page, not just 2 pages, but an entire cloud roadmap. I'm a professional, I do this for a living. 2 sides. There's a bunch of them by the back door. So, if you have any questions, I will be glad to hear them. Otherwise, I have to run for the airport. Now the happy hour is open. Sure. Once I had Outlook, I'd look for things like key, I'd look for things like password, access, any of those kinds of things. Free dongle. Honestly, most of the time I'm just looking for keys and that kind of stuff. Anything else that might be secret or anything that might be policy, any of that kind of stuff. Because if I know what your policies are, now I can try to get around them, that kind of stuff. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It'd be worth looking.
I'm curious. Yeah, I think we use
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah.
Question for you. So I missed the first few minutes of the presentation. So you like yourself. You say you went to SANS.
Yeah, I'm a SANS instructor.
So this is SANS.
SANS is the, we do training all over the world. We do a lot of training with the military.
Okay.
And we do attack training for, attack, defend, a lot of things like ICS, right? So ICS controls you want to do after the fact hey, you're going to come in and figure out what happened. We do a lot of training in that. We do a lot of those kinds of things. And that lady in the back left and that guy in the back right, in the red shirts, are both military salespeople, so they know exactly how to get it approved and ready to go. So all federal sales.
Also, this device give you overproof for yourself. You just miss the deadline for this fiscal year. Next fiscal year rolls around, they give you basically a 50% discount if you use your TACA.
Nice.
So instead of being
Nice and
9,000,
just.
Yeah.
Enjoy the banter.
Thank you. Good.
basic users. And it's use CA if you're not doing school, use TA. Instead of letting